In the last lesson, you read about the Pilgrims' arrival at Plymouth Rock, their struggle to survive their first year in America, and the help they received from the native people. Squanto, his friend Somerset, and the Wampanoag tribe were all instrumental, or very important, in helping the Pilgrims survive. Another person who was key to the success of the colonists was their governor, William Bradford. You might remember from Lesson 7 that William Bradford was one of the original colonists who came over on the Mayflower and signed the Mayflower Compact. The Mayflower Compact outlined what the first government in America should look like. The colonists decided that they would remain loyal to King James of England, but they would make laws for the good of the colony and follow those laws. William Bradford was elected governor of Plymouth in 1621 and held the position for 30 years. Much of what we know about daily Pilgrim life during this time comes from the journal he wrote called Of Plymouth Plantation. In this journal, Bradford wrote about his experiences on the Mayflower, the events of the first 30 years in Plymouth, and the colonists' reaction to those events. Following the success of that first harvest, Governor William Bradford organized a feast to celebrate and give thanks to God for all his blessings. At the first Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims and their friends from the Wampanoag tribe met to share a meal. Before they ate, William Bradford said a prayer, which became an important part of the Thanksgiving feast. His prayer was a song found in the Christian Bible in the Book of Psalms. The Pilgrims and many early colonists were very familiar with the Book of Psalms, which is composed of over 150 songs and poems. Bradford read from Psalm 107. It begins, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever." Bradford's first prayer to establish the Thanksgiving tradition recognized the struggle of the early colonists and has been used in many Thanksgiving celebrations since then as a reminder of those struggles. Think about the Pilgrims' decision to leave their homes and travel across the Atlantic Ocean to reach a totally unknown land. When they reached Plymouth, they had to build their colony from the ground up. There were no houses or stores. That was hard work. Another part of the psalm that Bradford read says, "Those he gathered from the lands from east and west, from north and south. Some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress." Another part of Bradford's prayer from the psalm was, "Some went out on the sea in ships. They were merchants on the mighty waters. They saw the works of the Lord, his wonderful deeds in the deep. For he spoke and stirred up a tempest that lifted high the waves. They mounted up to the heavens and went down to the depths. In their peril, their courage melted away. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. They were glad when it grew calm, and he guided them to their desired haven." Think about all that the Pilgrims endured at Plymouth. Toward the end of Bradford's prayer, the psalm said, "There he brought the hungry to live, and they founded a city where they could settle. They sowed fields and planted vineyards that yielded a fruitful harvest. He blessed them, and their numbers greatly increased, and he did not let their herds diminish." This part of his prayer describes how people were able to settle in a new place and live productive and happy lives. Following the success of the first harvest feast, the tradition was repeated each year. Over 200 years later, in 1863, President Lincoln declared Thanksgiving a national holiday. His proclamation said, "I do therefore invite my fellow citizens in every part of the United States to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next as a day of Thanksgiving." This proclamation, or official announcement, was continued by many presidents after Lincoln. When President Ronald Reagan made a Thanksgiving Day proclamation in 1985, he even reminded everyone that Governor William Bradford was responsible for the first Thanksgiving Day celebration. Every year on Thanksgiving, the President of the United States holds a ceremony at the White House. The President reads the Thanksgiving Day proclamation to remind citizens of the meaning and purpose of the holiday. The ceremony ends with the annual Thanksgiving turkey pardon. A pardon is when you forgive someone for an offense and they will no longer face consequences. The President chooses a big turkey, pardons it, and promises the turkey it will not end up as Thanksgiving dinner. The first president to pardon a turkey was President Harry Truman in 1947. This is a fun tradition that all ages enjoy.